Hey everyone, welcome to another video. Remember, if you love film, gaming, or television content, please consider clicking that subscribe button because we are finally back with some Oscars content. It has been a long wait, but I am now going to be doing my extremely early Oscar predictions for early next year. So, let's get into it. So in terms of what I have seen regarding contenders, not too many. I've seen Spider-Verse, I recently saw Elemental, but only one of them I think may be a serious push for some other categories other than animation. In terms of the big players though, we have heard a lot of hype from the Cannes Film Festival, and I've seen a bunch of trailers for some of these, so I can kind of see what they're aiming for and try to make an educated guess from there. Let's get into these predictions. So, Best Picture. We're going into hot takes straight away. We're this early, we can be a little bit wild, that's fine. I'm going Dune Part 2 for Best Picture right now. I mean, the first one won the most Oscars on the day, and this one might do even better. The trailer looked phenomenal. Denis Villeneuve is leveling up, and from what I hear from people who have read the book, this is where the story really picks up. And you kind of think of it like Lord of the Rings. The first two didn't win Best Picture, the last one did. And I believe that this second one might be the finale. I don't think they're going to be doing a part 3. So this could be the chance for the Oscars to give Dune that Best Picture win. Number 2, you have to go with a Martin Scorsese movie, Killers of the Flower Moon. That thing premiered at Cannes to a very, very positive reception. I mean, that's the audience you play it to. So did The Irishman. That received a lot of praise when that came out. Although I don't think that played at really any film festival that I can remember. Maybe Venice or something. But that one got nominated for 10 and didn't win anything. This may do the same thing, but I think this has a better shot because it seems like people are really getting behind this movie a lot more than The Irishman, which was kind of loved just because it was a new Martin Scorsese epic. Number 3, I've got Oppenheimer. This looks like Christopher Nolan trying his best to win an Oscar. This thing looks phenomenal. This will sweep in a bunch of tech categories. It'll be contending with Dune for a lot of stuff. And I think it has a chance, and there's a good package for it to win. But the only thing I could see maybe holding it back is that the Oscars just have never awarded Christopher Nolan anything before. I mean, he's made Inception, Interstellar, The Dark Knight. I mean, even Dunkirk, when he was going for more Oscar bait, he still didn't win. So it would be nice to see him get something here, but who knows. Number 4, we have Past Lives, more of an indie pick from A24, a movie that I'm extremely excited to see after seeing the trailer. I think this has a good shot of winning some categories for sure. It has a very overwhelmingly positive reception from Sundance, and the limited release it just had in the States, it's just getting better and better. I am so looking forward to seeing that movie in August. Number 5, you have to go The Color Purple. I mean, it's kind of dropping a little bit after seeing the trailer. It does look a little bit more formulaic. And the story has already been told by Steven Spielberg. I mean, who better to tell a story than Steven Spielberg? This does, however, look like it could get a bunch of tech categories and more crafts categories because it is a period film. So it'd be interesting to see what the reception is there. I see that kind of playing at TIFF or one of the later film festivals. So we do have to wait a little bit more to see what the reception is going to be, but the trailer didn't really impress me too much. It was initially when I was first thinking about making this video, it was number 2, so it has dropped a little bit in my eyes. Alright, this is where we're seeing that Cannes hype come into play. Anatomy of a Fall, the Palme d'Or winner. Last year, the Palme d'Or winner, Triangle of Sadness, got nominated for Best Picture, so I'm kind of just following that logic along. It got pretty good reviews when it premiered, and because of its reputation as a Palme d'Or winner now, those reviews have gotten higher as we've gone on. And I definitely see it getting into a couple of categories if the momentum just continues to build. Number 7, The Zone of Interest, a film that I think was very close to getting the Palme d'Or. I believe it's on a 98 on Metacritic, which is incredibly high. Very few films reach that high on Metacritic. This is Jonathan Glazer's next film after Under the Skin, which was like, 10 years ago now? You know, he does like to innovate a lot with his stories. And to me, this feels like the next Tar. You know, something that takes a director a very long time to really be passionate about making another film, and this is the thing that they pick. It might be on the more artistic side from what I've heard, but the Oscars don't mind that sometimes. As I said, Tar got nominated for a bunch of stuff. I don't know too much about the story structure or anything like that. I do hear this is a slower pace, more artistic film. But once again, Tar's like that too, so we'll have to wait and see. But from the reception, I think it could be getting in for a Best Picture nomination. 8 to 10 are some very risky picks here. At number 8, I have Barbie. I mean, everyone is so excited for this movie, me included. I think because it is getting so overwhelmingly hyped, though, I feel like my personal excitement is dying down a little bit. But once again, I think there's a nice package for it in a couple of tech categories, maybe some acting. You know, Greta Gerwig's behind this. She's a phenomenal director. You have Noah Baumbach writing the screenplay. You know, these people don't make goofy-ass movies that aren't awards players. Usually when they're making a movie, they're trying to get awards, and this could be no different. Just because it's a little bit more fun-loving, I think there's going to be some messaging in there, some political themes, which may rub people the wrong way, but Oscars voters is who we're talking about here. That's who these films are targeted towards. If you want to get all of these awards, you need to hit with that audience. And, you know, the goofy side of it might not resonate with some people, but I think it will with others. I think it's going to have a very mixed reception when it comes out. Some people are going to really, really love it and say it's their movie of the year. Some people are going to say it's their worst movie of the year. So there's a lot riding on the quality of this. This could shoot up a little bit, or it could just get completely knocked out of this 10. But right now I have it in 8. It's very risky. Number 9, just because it has been so overwhelmingly successful, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. The only thing that holds us back quite a bit is the fact that it's just an animated film. The Oscars are very hesitant to nominate an animated film for Best Picture. A lot of people thought Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio was going to get in last year. It didn't. This, however, had such a strong reception. This hits with the critics, it hits with audiences. For me personally, it's my film of the year so far. I haven't seen too many films that release in 2023 because they're all coming out at the back end of the year. But still, so far, this is the film of the year in my eyes. It pushes the boundaries of animation. It has an incredibly engaging story. The only thing, again, holding this back is that this is part 1 of a story. The Oscars don't really like that. As I mentioned with Lord of the Rings and Dune Part 1. They like to see, I guess, a finished story, which is more than fair. But that could hold it back a little bit from getting nominated. It would be a shame because at least one of these Spider-Verse films needs to get nominated for Best Picture because they're just an incredible achievement and really push the bar for animation. The first one has already inspired a ton of copycats, a lot of people trying to go for that style. And this one just showed how they're still behind what Spider-Verse can do. A phenomenal film that I personally think has a good shot, especially as well with the Letterboxd reception. I mean, I think it still is the number 1 film on Letterboxd. That might be a tiny bit overblown just because of the hype of the thing. Superhero movies get really high scores on release on Letterboxd just because everyone's buying into the hype. But this is still a phenomenal film that if you argued it was better than the first, I wouldn't really disagree with you. It's a phenomenal, phenomenal film. Number 10, another risky pick, Poor Things. Now, this might be my own bias coming through here because this film looks incredibly exciting. It's one of my most anticipated of the year. Yorgos Lanthimos, though, he did get nominated a bunch for The Favourite, but as I said in my trailer reaction for Poor Things, that was a period piece, and the Oscars love that shit. Poor Things, not so much. It is a little bit, but it's very weird, very wacky. I can see a lot of audiences hating this movie, especially Oscars voters. They don't really like anything kind of out of the box. I've already talked in the past how a lot of Wes Anderson movies don't really get nominated too much, apart from The Grand Budapest Hotel, which did really well. Poor Things could follow something similar, but at the same time, there's something really interesting and compelling there, and Lanthimos' style connects with Oscars voters, and it looks like we're getting more of it in Poor Things. It actually looks like he's just going 110% down the deep end with this, and that could be something that appeals to a lot of voters. However, very risky pick. It could drop in the next couple of months, depending on how this fares when it comes out. 11, Right at the heels of Poor Things, I have Maestro, the Bradley Cooper film, where it looks like he just wants to win a ton of Oscars for this film that he is directing. His follow-up to A Star Is Born in a way. There's not too much that I know about it, apart from it looks like it's going to be a great transformation from Bradley Cooper. But I think the narrative behind this film when it comes out is that it's just going to be a vehicle for him to get Oscars, and that might rub people the wrong way. So that's why I have it outside of the 10. 12, I've got Air. As I said in my review for that film, I kind of think it's a pretender. I think just because it did well early in the year, I think a lot of people are going to forget about how well it did later in the year. It's one of those films that you kind of enjoy when you're watching it, but it doesn't really leave a real impression on you to really last the whole year that it has to wait out for. Unless you're something like Everything Everywhere All at Once that just had a lot of people super engaged with it. Some people calling it their movie of all time that has the legs to run all year and then sweep at the Oscars like it did. Air doesn't really have that, so I don't really see it lasting all the way to March and getting a ton of Oscar nominations. And that's why I have it out of the 10 so far. Number 13, Saltburn. I don't know too much about this film apart from the cast, and Emerald Fennell is doing it, the director of Promising Young Woman, which I thought was a phenomenal film and deserved its screenplay win when it came out. There's not too much that I can say about this one. I'm looking forward to seeing it just because of who's behind it, and that's really it. Number 14, The Holdovers. This is Alexander Payne's new film. I don't know too much about his work. I do hear he is somewhat of an Oscar player whenever he releases a new film. This stars Paul Giamatti, but I think from what I've seen from pictures, it just doesn't look like something that will be a real contender for the Oscars. It might be something that people will enjoy, but yeah, there's really not too much to say there. Blitz I know nothing about, so let's just move on to the next 5. Number 16, the new Ridley Scott film starring Joaquin Phoenix, Napoleon, where Joaquin Phoenix is playing Napoleon. This could be a huge Oscar contender if it does well. And that's a big if because Ridley Scott has had a pretty spotty track record in the past at this stage. House of Gucci was supposed to be a massive Oscar player, but we all know how that did. Terrible reviews. I don't think it made that much money at the box office. And a lot of people said it was one of the worst films of the year. I didn't think it was too bad, but you know, it wasn't the best. And then he also did The Last Duel, which I thought was phenomenal, but that bombed at the box office. And I think Napoleon might follow a similar route to The Last Duel, where it is actually a pretty good movie, but no one's going to be interested to see it. People just aren't interested in those kinds of movies anymore. Number 17, The Killer, David Fincher's new film. Now, for me personally, I think that this could be a contender for the best film of the year. David Fincher doing a film about a serial killer, sign me up. You know that film's going to be phenomenal. However, the Oscars aren't a fan of that kind of genre. I don't think Seven did too well at the Oscars, and neither did Zodiac. So, I mean, if those aren't going to do well, I don't know how this is going to do, especially when I think a lot of people are going to be instantly comparing it to those two movies, what he did in the past. Mank, his last film, did incredibly well, but that was a film about Citizen Kane, a film that really resonated with a lot of Oscars voters and people consider to be the greatest film of all time. Really incredible film. The Killer, I don't know. I want it to do well. I'm excited for it. It depends on how Netflix campaigns it. But yeah, I don't think it's going to be a real player. La Chimera, I hear a lot of good things out of Cannes. I don't know too much about it once again, but it could be a player, but who knows. 19 and 20 are more, I guess, wish list picks for what I want to do well. 19, Asteroid City. You know that I'm a massive fan of Wes Anderson if you've been following this channel. And I'm incredibly excited for this film. I did a trailer reaction to it. I think the movie looks great, but I don't think that this looks like Wes Anderson's best film by a country mile. And that's kind of what I'm hearing from reviews, and it's just going to drop as we get further in the year. I don't really think it's going to be a real player, but you never know. Number 20, Next Goal Wins, Taika Waititi's new film. He hasn't had a great, I guess, track record with people's opinion of him as of late. You know, Thor Love and Thunder didn't too well, but that kind of annoys me as someone who's from New Zealand. I think he's a great director, and him winning Jojo Rabbit at the Oscars was a huge moment for New Zealand filmmaking. And to see him get ragged because of one pretty mid-Marvel movie, that's kind of a shame, because to me, both his Thor movies are his two weakest movies because they don't really show off what he's capable of as a director. If you watch any of his other films that he made and didn't have, you know, a massive corporation behind him. They're really excellent films. They're really funny. His last film that he did like that was Jojo Rabbit, which got nominated for Best Picture and won Best Adapted Screenplay. So Next Goal Wins could be a player, but I think that the way that he is kind of perceived does hurt this film a lot, no matter how good it's going to be. All right, on to Best Director. If I'm saying Dune Part 2 is going to win Best Picture, I think a director has to come along with that. And I think the Oscars might realize the error of their ways for not nominating Denis Villeneuve for the first Dune. I mean, that was pretty much a crime, in my opinion, that he didn't get nominated for that, because to me, he was a top 3 contender just to win, let alone just to be nominated. So I think he has a good chance of getting nominated here, and I think that he could take the win for his first ever directing win, which would be huge because he has just done such phenomenal work that I really think needs to be applauded. Number 2, I have Christopher Nolan for Oppenheimer, another one that the Oscars have notoriously snubbed for their win. Him winning it would be a huge occasion, and Oppenheimer just has all of those technicals and crafts, what will probably be a good screenplay, good performances. Being a big, ambitious movie like this helps a lot, and I think that's why it's such a serious contender. Number 3, Martin Scorsese for Killers of the Flower Moon. Do I really need to say more? He's Martin Scorsese. He's going to be doing Martin Scorsese things in this movie, and people are just going to eat that shit up, including Oscars voters. So I think that he's pretty much a lock to get nominated here. Number 4, Jonathan Glazer for The Zone of Interest. Definitely has a good shot to get in. It seems like it might be a more experimental film, and sometimes the Oscars pay that off. So I think that he has a pretty good shot of getting nominated. Number 5, I have Celine Song for Past Lives. The only reason that she's a bit lower here and is kind of on the cusp of getting snubbed, it's not just because she's a woman. And we know that the Oscars aren't really too fond of nominating female directors, but it's more for the fact that this feels like more of a screenplay movie from what I've seen. There's not too much style there. It's more based on incredible performances and a really compelling screenplay. So I think it's going to fare up really well in that category. Director, not so much. Number 6, I've got Yorgos Lanthimos for Poor Things. I mean, the style is off the charts. I mean, if you want something a little bit more wacky, I think that this has just an incredible vision behind it that is insanely unique, which is what cinema really, really needs, especially at this stage of the year. I've seen a lot of unoriginal films lately, so I think this would be really refreshing for the year. But that's my opinion. Oscars voters might not think the same because, once again, it's weird. But this is really like his full vision. So if it's successful, I really think he will be the one that will take all that credit, and deservingly so. Number 7, Greta Gerwig for Barbie. There are some real stylistic choices in there. I think the mixed nature of it all might knock her out of getting nominated for director. And she didn't get nominated for Little Women, which right now I think is her best film. And personally, from what I've seen from Barbie, I don't think Barbie's going to be a better film than Little Women, but we'll see. Number 8, Blitz Bazawule for The Color Purple. Could get in there. It could happen. I don't really know. The Color Purple, to me, it could go either way. It could hit like an 80 or 90 on Metacritic, or it could hit like a 40, 50, 60. So if it hits that range, I think that Blitz Bazawule might be out. Number 9, I've got the directors for Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, just because of how ambitious this animation is. And I think that if it's going to get in for picture, it needs to get nominated for at least screenplay or director. So I think it has a shot for getting in at director, but once again, the fact that it's animated holds it back quite a bit from getting nominated. Justine Triet for Anatomy of a Fall. Once again, this seems more like a screenplay movie than a director's movie, if you know what I mean. So, I mean, it's in there, but Triangle of Sadness got nominated for director for the Palme d'Or. I know that they're probably going to be completely different movies, and Triangle of Sadness was very ambitious with the kind of satire it wanted to tell, while this seems a little bit more, I guess, just clear cut and just getting right to the chase. So once again, more of a screenplay contender than a director contender. Alright, Best Original Screenplay. As I said, Past Lives, more of a screenplay movie than a director's movie. And I think that this is clear-cut the favorite to win Best Original Screenplay. As of right now, with the kind of field that we're going to get this year, Past Lives might be sweet. One of those ones that if you're just going to put a shit ton of money on gambling for an Oscar winner, it could be this one. This could be the closest thing to a sure thing as possible. That's right now. There could be something that just completely surges and just knocks past lives off. But the fact that it's going to be such a strong contender in the Best Picture race, as I've already said, this is top 5 contender for Best Picture. So I think it really needs to do strong in screenplay, and that win will really launch it up. Number 2, I have Air, just because there's a lack of real contenders, and the screenplay for Air has gotten a lot of praise. I think that the screenplay is good enough. It could get nominated. It's not the worst thing in the world. Number 3, we have Saltburn. Emerald Fennell won a screenplay award for Promising Young Woman, so it could happen again for Saltburn. Really need to see a lot more with that movie before I kind of feel a little bit more confident in putting it at 3. Right now, it's on pretty shaky ground. Number 4, May December. This film did pretty good at Cannes, the new film from Todd Haynes. I kind of don't believe in Todd Haynes films at the Oscars because they kind of seem to underperform. And the last Todd Haynes film that I saw was Dark Waters, and some people thought it was a contender for something like screenplay and best actor at the time, and it did nothing. I think this has a little bit more behind it where it could get nominated for best screenplay, and it does seem like a real screenplay movie, so I think it's in the mix, but I'm not too confident about having it at 4. Number 5, Anatomy of a Fall. Once again, the hype from Cannes is real, and I'm actually surprised that I actually put it at 5. I'd probably put it above May, December, to be honest, because it seems like that screenplay is really strong. And if it gets in for Best Picture, I think that screenplay nomination comes with it. Number 6, The Holdovers. I'm not putting it in the 5 for the same reason that I haven't put it in any of the other categories. I just don't really believe in the hype yet. Number 7, I have Blitz, just because, once again, it's in the mix for some of these other categories, but I really don't know too much about it, so I'm not too confident there. Number 8, Monster. I mean, that did pretty well at Cannes, and with the kind of reception that it received, it could boost up, but I really don't know. Number 9, La Chimera, could be a contender. I don't know. Asteroid City, my confidence in it getting nominated is just dwindling by the day, but The French Dispatch was very close to getting nominated for screenplay a couple of years ago, so this might get in because some people are saying the story here is a little bit more consistent, so that might just be enough to push it over the line. But just from the reactions that it's gotten, I'm not too confident there. For Best Adapted Screenplay, I think Killers of the Flower Moon is just going to run away with it. I think it will be an Oscar-winning movie, and this will be the one that gets it that Oscar for sure. This is a 3.5-hour movie. I think it's just going to be very ambitious with its direction, and there's going to be some interesting writing in there. The Zone of Interest, a Jonathan Glazer movie, you know, it might be more praised for direction than its screenplay, and the fact that it seems like it's quite slow and artistic and methodical. Direction might be the thing that a lot of people are going to go for rather than screenplay, but I have it in there just because it seems like it could do quite well. Like Tar, I'm really comparing it with Tar's run right now. It seems kind of similar. Number 3, Oppenheimer. I think on its best day, this could take screenplay. It really could. But I think a lot of people are going to be more enamored with the technical aspects, the direction, pumping a lot of praise into Christopher Nolan and Cillian Murphy's performance. I think they're going to be the two things that really stand out here. The screenplay might be forgotten about a little bit. Number 4, I have Dune Part 2. The first one got in. I don't see why the second one wouldn't. The writing for the first one was phenomenal. Really had some really great world building. So I think Dune Part 2 might follow suit there. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse with 5. Once again, if it's going to get in for picture, it needs to be nominated for a screenplay or direction at least. And I think it just squeezes in for screenplay. But the thing that could hold it back is, once again, the fact that it's part 1 of a story and is a superhero movie. You know, that holds it back quite a bit as well. Number 6, I have Barbie. We must not underappreciate what this screenplay could be. This is written by Noah Baumbach. This dude writes phenomenal screenplays, one of the best writers out there. He wrote Marriage Story. I know a lot of people didn't really like it too much, but he also wrote White Noise, which I thought was a really fantastic screenplay and very ambitious. So it'd be interesting to see what he does with this, because this seems pretty out of the box for what we're used to from his style of writing. But I think he does have a shot to get in. Number 7 with Poor Things. I think it could be held back just a tiny bit, but the direction will be the thing that I think a lot of people will focus on. And once again, the performance from Emma Stone. Number 8, I have The Color Purple. I think that this is more of a director's movie than a screenplay movie. So I think that that's what knocks it back. Number 9, Next Skull Wins. Taika Waititi won an Oscar before in this exact category for Jojo Rabbit. So it could happen again when Next Skull wins. But once again, the kind of perception of Taika Waititi lately could hold this back. And number 10, Maestro. I really don't believe this getting in for screenplay, unless it just does really phenomenally like A Star Is Born did. This seems more of a vehicle for Bradley Cooper than the screenplay. Alright, Best Lead Actor. We're getting into these categories now. I think Cillian Murphy is the frontrunner for Oppenheimer. His performance from the trailer looks really great, and he has a good narrative behind it, and you need that when you're campaigning for an Oscar. And the fact that he's working with someone that he has been involved with for a long time with Christopher Nolan, this long-term collaboration leading to what could be his best performance to date, might be enough to boost him up to get that Oscar. At number 2, I have Bradley Cooper for Maestro because it seems like a vehicle for him to get an Oscar. You look at him in makeup, I'm sure he's going to be doing a funny accent, real transformational performance, and I think that's the thing that a lot of people are going to take away from this movie. So I think it getting nominated seems like a bit of a lock in my eyes. Number 3, Leonardo DiCaprio for Killers of the Flower Moon. I mean, it's Leonardo DiCaprio. Of course he's going to get nominated in this Martin Scorsese movie. He's, in my eyes, the best actor ever. I really can't fault pretty much a single performance he's done. He's been in some bad movies, but his performance has always been good. And as of late, he's working with great directors while having a phenomenal performance. And some people are saying this is his best performance yet, which is saying a lot for Leonardo DiCaprio. We'll see though. I don't think the Oscars really buy into a lot of what Leo does at times, which is a bit frustrating because to me, him only having one Oscar, it seems like a bit of a crime. I feel like he should at least have 2 or 3 by now. Some of the movies he's done, some of the performances he's given have been truly deserving. And I mean, I have my fingers crossed that he could get it here. I need to see the movie first to really judge that for myself, but I don't really believe in him winning as of late. Number 4, I have Coleman Domingo for Rustin. I think this dude is long overdue to get some kind of Oscars praise because he is a great actor. And this movie looks like it could be that thing to really push him up. I'm hearing that, this is that vehicle for him to get an Oscar nomination. So I think why not? Number 5, I have Kingsley Benadir for the Bob Marley movie. I mean, he's transforming into Bob Marley. And I think he's like English or something. So that could be a very interesting performance. Very transformational performance. Oscars love those biopic performances. And we're getting another one here. I think it's going to do well at the Oscars and could get that nomination. Number 6, I have Paul Giamatti for The Holdovers. Once again, don't believe in the film. I'm just going to sound like a broken record here. Number 7, Barry Keoghan for Saltburn. He got nominated last year for Banshees of Inisherin. He could do it again here. Depends on how meaty his role is and what he's doing. But if it is that lead role, I mean, so far, Emerald Fennell, she got Carey Mulligan an Oscar nomination, and it looked mighty close that she could actually win the thing that year. So it could happen here. Who knows? Number 8, Matt Damon for Air. To be honest with you, I don't really believe in this getting a nomination, but it's in the mix. It could get into Golden Globe or something. So there is a bit of a pathway there for it to get nominated. And I'm sure they're going to campaign the fuck out of this as we get to Oscar time. Number 9, I have Koji Yakusho for Perfect Days. This performance won Best Actor at Cannes, so I always take that a bit seriously, even though that doesn't really translate to Oscars. I mean, Song Kang-ho won it, I believe, last year for Broker, which I still haven't seen that movie yet, but, that movie got no Oscar buzz. Number 10, I have Anthony Hopkins for Freud's Last Session. I mean, he's playing Sigmund Freud. That sounds pretty interesting. And he's Anthony Hopkins. He recently won an Oscar for The Father, so who's to say he couldn't do it again here? But I'm really hearing nothing about it. The only way that I know about this is through my own research. So we have to see how it's going to do when it plays at a film festival or something. But it seems a bit too quiet to really get into that Oscar race. Best Lead Actress, I have Greta Lee for Past Lives. I don't know, something just feels right about giving this the Best Actress win. From what I hear, it's not the most showy performance, But that doesn't always matter, you know? It doesn't have to always be a completely transformational performance to get an Oscar win. Sometimes a subtle one does win, and this could be the one to do that, especially if it has such passion behind it, like it's been receiving. Number 2, I have Emma Stone in Poor Things. This seems to be the most showiest performance out of everything that I've seen from trailers and buzz and everything. And, you know, if this performance doesn't come off as annoying in the movie, which it could do, you know, I've only seen a trailer, this could be a really strong contender. Even if the movie doesn't do too well at the Oscars, sometimes you don't need to get nominated for Best Picture to be a contender in Best Actress. So that could really be a strong suit for this movie. It's going to be a thing that I think a lot of people talk about with this movie because, yeah, she's doing something really outside of the box here, and I'm really interested to see how it's going to play out. Number 3, I have Fantasia Barrino for The Color Purple. You know, I think a lot of people have this one at number 1 because it's probably going to be a really showy performance, but I really just don't believe in this movie getting nominated for a lot of stuff, and I really think it's going to underperform personally. Number 4, Sandra Huller for Anatomy of a Fall. A lot of buzz out of Cannes with this performance, so I really think that it could be a lock that she gets nominated here. And number 5, Margot Robbie for Barbie. You know, it is going to be a performance that everyone talks about when it comes out. I mean, everyone's talking about it now, so I think it's going to be huge. It's going to have a lot of hype behind it. We've got to see how it does with the critics and how it's going to play out in the long term. You know, are people just going to be buzzing about this movie during the month or so when it comes out and then completely just forgotten about? That happens sometimes. You know, I've ragged on movies that have come out in the past for, you know, really only being like that, and people do get mad at me, and then, you know, a month later, no one's talking about it. So we could see that here. I don't want to believe that. I'm really excited for Barbie, and I want this to get all the love and praise in the world, but I think that is something to look out for here. And from the trailer, it doesn't seem like Margot Robbie's doing anything really outside of the box for what we're really accustomed to from her. And she gave a powerhouse performance in Babylon last year that to me was deserving of an Oscar win and didn't even get nominated. So, you know, that hurts too, I think. Number 6, Sandra Huller for The Zone of Interest. I know I just mentioned her for Anatomy of a Fall. She's having a terrific year, by the way. If she doesn't get nominated for Anatomy of a Fall, she might get nominated for The Zone of Interest just because that film has done so well and she might just come along with the package. Number 7, Natalie Portman for May December. You know, I hear that Todd Haynes gets actresses nominated. It happened with Carol. So it could happen here with Natalie Portman, and she is a terrific actress. But once again, I don't really believe in this movie. Number 8, Saoirse Ronan for Blitz. Another phenomenal actress, but I know nothing about this movie, so I can't really make a decision on whether it should be higher or lower. Number 9, Jessica Lange for Long Day's Journey's Night. You know, I think she's a 2-time Oscar winner, so that's something to really pay attention to. They love nominating and giving awards to people that have gotten it a lot in the past. Not so much lately, actually. They've given it a lot to first-timers, which is great to see. But, you know, for that legacy thing, she might get in. I don't really believe in this movie either because I've heard nothing about it, and I really hear no excitement about it either. Number 10 is a wish list pick. Just believe me there. I don't genuinely think this has a single chance of getting in at the Oscars. But Mia Goth in Maxine. It would be incredibly nice of the Academy to nominate at least one performance from this phenomenal trilogy. It was a shame that she didn't get nominated for Pearl, a real transformational and just interesting performance. And even her one in X, where she is playing Pearl again, just a real great performance. She's unrecognizable, and to me, that is kind of what acting is, you know. I mean, of course she's in makeup, so she literally is unrecognizable, but I would have thought that she was someone completely different from her voice and her mannerisms, everything like that. So just please recognize this performance. It's going to be a horror movie probably. I know the Oscars hate that, but can we please leave that kind of thinking in the past? It just doesn't make sense now. Best Supporting Actor, I have Robert De Niro for Killers of the Flower Moon, and that's just really after the hype from Cannes. He seems like I think he's playing a villain of some kind, and he seems like he's giving it his all. A lot of people thought he should have got nominated for The Irishman when that came out, and he got snubbed, but I think he has a good chance here of getting nominated and taking that win, because a lot of people have Ryan Gosling for Barbie at number 1. And while I personally, from what I've seen, would really like that performance to win, I love Ryan Gosling, and he is far too overdue to win an Oscar. Barbie just doesn't seem like that type of movie to really just sweep Oscars. So I don't really believe in him getting it. And also the fact that it's a silly kind of comedy performance. The Oscars have a stick up their ass sometimes with this stuff. And, you know, it's probably going to hold it back. Number 3, I have Mark Ruffalo for Poor Things. It seems like a really interesting performance. It seems like a really funny performance, which once again might hold it back a little bit. But I think that he is a phenomenal actor, and it's great to see him do a role like this. I think it's going to be really refreshing, and I think he has a chance of getting in. Number 4, I have Matt Damon for Oppenheimer. This is purely just from what I've seen from the trailer. You know, I think a lot of predictions aren't really considering Matt Damon here, but from the trailer, it looks like he has a pretty meaty role, and it looked like a good performance. Matt Damon doesn't really fail. He always gives a good performance, and we're going to see that here in Oppenheimer, and if he's on the screen enough, it might get noticed enough to get a nomination. Number 5, Jesse Plemons for Killers of the Flower Moon. From what I've seen from the trailer, it looks like that kind of stoic, I guess, performance that we saw from him in The Power of the Dog, which got nominated in this same category. So it's possible here in a much more high-profile film that he's going to get nominated again. Number 6, I have Ben Affleck for Air. I really expected that this performance would be a little bit more, I guess, wacky and more showy than what it actually was. Ben Affleck kind of played Phil Knight really straight, which, you know, I actually haven't seen too much footage of Phil Knight, which is weird seeing as I'm a massive basketball fan, so I can't really tell on if he's playing the role accurately or not. But I was expecting a little bit more just from what I saw from the trailer and the images, that he would just have a little bit more pizzazz to the performance, and he didn't. So I think that kind of holds him back from actually getting in because he plays it so straight. It doesn't leave too much of an impression. But those images and the trailer, those are things that I think stick in people's mind with this movie. So people might be thinking of that and him getting in. And it is a meaty enough performance, I guess, where he could get in. I don't know. Number 7, Coleman Domingo for The Color Purple. I think the Oscars are going to be too busy nominating him for Rustin to really nominate him here. It's very rare that someone gets nominated twice in a year in acting. So I don't really see it happening here. Number 8, I have John Magaro for Past Lives. From the trailer, it looks like he gives a pretty good performance. That's all I can really say there. I don't really think he has too much of a chance. Number 9 and 10, once again, wish list picks. Number 9, Austin Butler for Dune Part 2. He got nominated for Elvis. I know that's a real transformational performance, but him playing the character that he's going to be playing in Dune Part 2, it also looks like a transformational performance. And he seems really interesting. This character looks really fascinating. I cannot wait to see the movie and really find out a little bit more about what he's about. Number 10, Rami Youssef for Poor Things. I am a massive fan of the Rami TV show. I've harped on about that a lot on this channel. So him potentially getting a nomination at the Oscars would be such a cool moment. I want nothing but the best for this guy. So I really hope it does well. And the performance in Poor Things looked meaty enough. It looked interesting as well. He had some great back and forth with Emma Stone. So it'd be really interesting to see what his role is in this movie. For Best Supporting Actress, number 1 has to be Lily Gladstone. I think that she is going to take it home for her performance in Killers of the Flower Moon. People are really talking about how great this performance is. And there's a bit of a narrative behind it too, with her being, I guess, the first Native American, I believe, to potentially get nominated for an Oscar or perhaps even win one. I really think she's going to sweep. It's going to be like the Ki Hai Kwan for last year. She's just going to get every single award, and that's going to be that. I'm very confident that that's going to be the case. It's not even really worth talking about the other ones, if I'm going to be honest with you. But for the sake of it, number 2 and number 3, both from The Color Purple, Danielle Brooks and Taraji P. Henson. I mean, from what I hear, their performances are going to be interesting enough, and they're going to have their moments, so they could get in. I think they're actually a lock to get in, to be honest. Those 3 all going to get nominated. Lily Gladstone definitely taking it home. Number 4, I have Viola Davis in Air. In my opinion, the best performance in the movie. I would actually really like to see her get nominated for this. She's a phenomenal actress, and the performance, I think, is good enough to get in. Number 5, Julianne Moore for May December. I think that going into the narrative of Todd Haynes gets actresses nominated for Oscars, I guess here we go. This is that. And it sounds like, you know, she has a really good couple of moments with Natalie Portman in this movie. So we'll see how it plays out. But I'm not really too confident in May December, so it could bump out if there's something really interesting that comes up. Number 6, Rosamund Pike for Saltburn. This is really not too much I can say. She has a good track record for her performances. She got a Golden Globe nomination. This could just be more of that. I really can't say more than that here. Isabella Rossellini for La Chimera. I hear her performance is quite good. Number 8, Emily Blunt for Oppenheimer. I saw her in the trailer. It could be interesting. Number 9, Scarlett Johansson for Asteroid City. Wes Anderson movies never get nominated for acting, but I do hear that her performance is pretty good, so we'll see how it goes, but I really doubt that she's going to get a nomination here. Number 10, real wish list pick here, Zendaya for Dune Part 2. A lot of people wanted to see a lot more Chani in Part 1, and I think we're going to get that here in Dune Part 2, and I think people are going to be enamored with the performance she's going to give because her character was really fascinating in Part 1. Just the little slices that we had of her were some of the best parts of the movie, so if we're getting more of that in Dune Part 2, then sign me up. I think that it could, I guess, potentially be a contender there, but who knows. For Best International Feature, this is good for you as well. If you're really looking forward to some international films, this could be a good list for you. Number 1, I have The Zone of Interest. I really hear that this movie is phenomenal. You know, it has that critical praise. Number 2, Anatomy of a Fall, Palme d'Or winner at Cannes. I think it's a lock. Number 3, How Do You Live? The new movie from Hayao Miyazaki, Studio Ghibli fame. You know, this film is coming out in a month. There is no marketing behind it. It's only playing in Japan in the next month. I think that a lot of people are going to be really, really passionate about this movie, and I think it could get nominated here. Number 4, La Chimera, another film that I hear a lot of buzz from at Cannes. Could be really interesting, but I don't really see it as a contender to win, but definitely to get nominated for sure. Number 5, I have Monster, the new Koreeda film. Broker didn't get in. It missed out because it didn't get submitted. I think it was from Korea and they submitted Decision to Leave, which got snubbed for some fucking reason. Who knows? But I think he gets in here for Monster. Animated feature. I mean, this is just such a breeze. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is winning hands down. The first one did. People say that this one is better. I'm a little bit torn personally. I think they're pretty close. They're almost on the same level. I personally prefer the story in the first one a tad more, not by much. So I think that might hold it back a little bit, once again, it being Part 1. But I think it's going to do really well, and it's probably going to sweep this category, to be honest with you. Number 2, How Do You Live? You know, a Miyazaki film that's going to have a lot of passion behind it, once again. You know, these Japanese, more anime-style films never do well at the Oscars. You know, we always get at least one that comes up every year and everyone thinks it's going to get nominated. It doesn't even come close to getting nominated just because the Oscars don't like that style of filmmaking. And it can be a bit divisive, but Miyazaki is a legend. I believe Spirited Away won the Oscar for animated feature. So, you know, I think this is going to be a real contender. Number 3, a lot of people aren't having this in their mix, but the Super Mario movie has made over $1 billion. I think it's the highest grossing film this year. Very successful. So I think that plays a big part to this getting in, despite the quality of it. You know, Mario fans are really happy with this product. I really think that fan service and the enjoyment that it has with a lot of audiences is enough to have it on the Oscars radar. Number 4, I have a movie that I saw recently and reviewed, which you can check out if you like. Elemental, the new Pixar film. Initially, before I had seen this movie, I thought it would be top 2. You know, I was very excited for this movie. I thought it was going to be their best film since Luca, or even Soul. It looked really, really great in my eyes. I saw the movie. It is more or less a pretty average Pixar film. You know, it's definitely one of their weaker ones. It's not a terrible movie by any means. I think kids are going to have a great time watching this movie. But, you know, we're talking about Pixar here, one of the great studios. It is nowhere near the quality of a Toy Story, you know, a Soul, Monsters Inc., Incredibles. You know, you go down the list of their hits. It doesn't touch those. But I think it might be just good enough to get in just off the reputation alone. I mean, it's probably a little bit better than Lightyear. You know, it's kind of close. But I think the fact that it's doing something original and looks very great, you know, as a Pixar film. They all do. So I think that's enough to get it in. Number 5, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. mutant mayhem. It's going for that Spider-Verse style. You know, we're talking about Spider-Verse inspiring all these movies. This is one of them. It looks very pretty. And, you know, people are going to be really behind this movie. And it looks like a really quality film. Number 6, I have Wish, which I think a lot of people have in their 5. But I saw the trailer before I saw Elemental for the first time, and I'm not really impressed with how it looks. You know, the story looks like a very typical Disney animated film. I know Encanto did really well when that came out, but I don't think this is going to have that attention. You know, when the trailer played like, you know, a month or so ago, I didn't hear too much people talking about how great it was or how excited they are. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see for when it comes out and see the way that people react. But I don't really believe in this movie getting a nomination. Number 7, I have Chicken Run, Dawn of the Nugget. You know, these kinds of Wallace and Gromit films have been getting nominated for a long time now. The most recent surprise being the Shaun the Sheep Farmageddon movie. I mean, what a title. This one I don't see getting nominated because, to be honest, the animated feature lineup this year looks really strong. Maybe the strongest I've seen in a few years, so I think that's what just keeps it out. If we're in a weaker year, it probably would get nominated. Alright, into the tech categories now with Best Cinematography. Number 1, I have Dune Part 2. Part 1 won it, and it's probably going to get it again just because it has a lot of that great cinematography. You know, Greg Fraser's behind it again. I think it's going to do really, really well. And it's going to be dominating in a ton of tech categories, this being one of them. Number 2, I have Poor Things because, I mean, that thing looked absolutely stunning. Absolutely phenomenal. But in my eyes, when it came out, The French Dispatch was the best looking film that year. Didn't get nominated. So, you know, that wacky, zany kind of vibe that Poor Things is going for, that could hold it back here, even though it looks stunning. Number 3, Killers of the Flower Moon. In my eyes, the cinematography looks kind of bland. And The Irishman looked kind of bland as well when that came out. But guess what? It got nominated. So we're going to see that again here, I think. Number 4, Oppenheimer. Christopher Nolan movie, you know, it's going to look stunning. And yeah, there's not much more to say there. Number 5, I have The Color Purple because once again, I think that it is a good technical and craftsmanship showcase. So cinematography could be in that package there. Number 6, I have Barbie. I mean, it looks like a very pretty movie, but I think the production design is going to get praised more than cinematography, and that's why I have it out. Number 7, I have The Zone of Interest. You know, that kind of, I guess, it seems a bit muted. That kind of color palette sometimes does quite well at the Oscars, and just for the type of film it is and its slower pace and everything like that, being a Jonathan Glazer film, I think there might be some really good framing, and I think that's going to be the thing that I guess gets it the nomination for cinematography if it were to get in. Number 8, I have Maestro, just because there could be some really good looking scenes in there. Bradley Cooper is not a slouch as a director, so I think it would look good. Number 9, I have The Creator, just because it's that big sci-fi film this year. There's going to be a lot of visual effects, but I think it will look quite pretty. And number 10, wishlist pick once again, John Wick Chapter 4. I mean, what a phenomenal film. The lighting in it was just off the charts good. And I think, why not nominate it for at least one thing, just to give it that praise of being just easily the best in this franchise. Alright, production design. This is where we're talking about Oscars for Barbie, because I think it actually wins Best Production Design. It looks stunning for what I saw in the trailer. The sets that they're building, the colors, they just pop. It really looks great. So I think that it is right now the favorite to take that award. Number 2, I have Dune Part 2. Dune Part 1 got nominated, and this looks like it is going sicko mode with its cinematography and production design. So I think this is going to be a stronger contender. It is a very close race between this and Barbie from what I've seen. Number 3, Poor Things. Phenomenal production design by the looks of it, but I'm feeling a little bit of The French Dispatch. You know, to me, The French Dispatch has the best production design that I have ever seen, and it didn't get nominated. Poor Things has Yorgos Lanthimos behind it, who we know is a very, very respected director, so I think it has more of a chance of getting nominated, but I don't really see it winning. Oppenheimer, they built a little town for this, so that real, I guess, ambitiousness of this project and the production behind it, I think that's enough to get it in. From the trailers of Killers of the Flower Moon, they built a lot of sets, a lot of houses. They, once again, built a town, so I see it really getting that nomination. I feel like these 5 are honestly really solid. That's probably going to be the 5 for the year if, something doesn't happen with Barbie being panned or Poor Things being panned or something like that. Number 6, I have Asteroid City for the same reason that I just mentioned before with the French Dispatch. It seems like at this stage, no matter how good the production design is in a Wes Anderson movie, they're not really liking it, And the fact that we're getting all these AI Wes Anderson kind of tributes hurts this film a lot because he's just doing his thing. We all know his style, but the fact that it's getting played a lot on TikTok and a lot of people are really trying to replicate it a lot because it is very aesthetically pleasing, that actually hurts his films, which is a huge shame because I really don't think he misses. Wes Anderson is one of my favorite directors, and from the trailer, the production design for Asteroid City really looked great, but I don't think it gets in. Number 7, I have The Color Purple, because once again, it seems like they're building a lot of houses and towns, and that ambitiousness of it could get it in. But those 5 that I mentioned before are just so strong in my eyes. Number 8, bit of a different one here, Wonka. I'm excited for this movie, and I think it will have pretty great production design, but we need to also see how much CG is being used. This movie could have a lot of CG, so we kind of need to wait and see if they've actually built a lot of sets. Number 9, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. They've probably built a bunch of the caves. But from, once again, what I've seen in the trailer, it seems like there's a lot of CGI. But I'm honestly, personally, I'm really excited for this movie despite the reception it got at Cannes. Number 10, Napoleon. This is going to have a lot of battle scenes. There's probably going to be a lot of, I guess, period era sets and costumes. I know the costumes don't go into this award, but I think it's really going to encapsulate what France and I guess Europe as a whole look like during that time. So it's going to be pretty interesting. Best editing, I have Dune Part 2 once again taking it home. Dune Part 1 won it, so why not Dune Part 2? Oppenheimer is a strong contender though, very ambitious movie from Christopher Nolan. Shot for IMAX, it's going to look fantastic and there's going to be some great editing in there. I think Tenet won for editing when that came out, so we'll wait and see. Number 3, Maestro could have pretty good editing. The way that this film looks like it's framed, being this Bradley Cooper vehicle, I think it's going to be edited to look really great, and the dialogue is going to be very back and forth in my eyes from what I'm hearing. Number 4, Killers of the Flower Moon. Ambitious Martin Scorsese movie. I don't see why it couldn't get nominated for editing. Number 5, Air. There is a big, really showy editing sequence near the end of the film that I think will be the thing that could get it nominated. The rest of the film, the editing's pretty ordinary. There's nothing really, special about it until we get to that end part where we get a bit of a montage, which was edited pretty well. I'll give it credit there. So once again, we need to wait and see, 6 months from now, if people are still talking about Air and whether they really like it. I personally don't see that happening. I think that even now, people are kind of forgetting about what they really enjoyed about this film as we're getting new movies like Spider-Verse coming through and all the hype that we're getting from Cannes. Number 6, I have Anatomy of a Fall. I feel like because this is kind of a court drama, it could be like Trial of the Chicago 7, with that kind of editing. But once again, I think the 5 that we're getting is quite solid. Number 7, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. This could get in because the editing is phenomenal. It goes with the animation like hand in hand. So me personally, it is one of the best edited films of the year. But because once again, it's animated, it's not something that you really think of these crafts when you're thinking of an animated film. Unless it's a stop motion movie, you don't really think of, production design, editing, visual effects in that kind of movie. It's more just we praise the animation and then that's it. Number 8, Poor Things. It looks like it's edited to be quite funny and, this movie is wacky as hell by the looks of it. So I think it's going to be edited quite interestingly, but I don't see it getting in this category. Number 9, Barbie. It could get in. I think there's going to be a couple of fun montages from what I've seen in the trailer that will be very showy in its editing, but that's really about it. Number 10, The Killer. David Fincher movies are always edited well, so I don't really see that being any different. But the genre that it's playing into, it's not going to get nominated for a damn thing, which will be a shame. For Best Sound, I think Oppenheimer takes it hands down. Their firing off these real bombs, there's going to be some really loud sound. The only thing that holds this back potentially is Tenet. Tenet had some of the worst sound mixing that I've ever heard in my life. I mean, you cannot hear them talk over the sound of the score and the background noise. Oppenheimer needs to tidy that shit up. Otherwise, it won't win. If it does that right, and Christopher Nolan doesn't indulge himself with all these loud noises, I think it's a surefire win. Because I think this thing is going to have incredible sound. People are going to be listening to this in an IMAX theater, and it's going to knock their fucking socks off. But we need to wait and see if that sound mixing is going to be great. That is the only potential thing holding it back. And if that does happen, Dune Part 2 takes it hands down, because once again, I think Part 1 took it. These movies sound phenomenal. Some really great sound, especially, once again, if you're listening to this in a fucking IMAX theater, it's just going to be insane. Number 3, I have Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. There's going to be a lot of explosions and a lot of guns shooting, and it's going to be quite loud. Once again, a big blockbuster film that a lot of people are going to be passionate about, I think. Number 4, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I think it's just a category that kind of needs to be in that package for it to get into Best Picture. But the weird sound mixing issues that happened at the beginning of the movie, that was not the movie's fault, it was the theater's fault. But that story could play into it not getting a nomination. Hearing it in an IMAX theater, seeing an IMAX movie for the first time in a long, long time, sound was incredible. I mean, it is one of the best sounding movies of the year, hands down. Number 5, I have John Wick Chapter 4. I think it is a brilliantly sounding movie, and why not give it a nomination, at least in this one measly tech category. For costume design, I have Poor Things. Those costumes look just really great. The favorite, I believe, won for this category, being a period era film. This also has a lot of period era stuff, so the costume design looks really, really fascinating to see. Number 2, I have Barbie. The costumes look great. I mean, they look like the dolls. It's going to be a really fun movie. Number 3, Dune Part 2. Once again, Part 1 got in. I'm just going to keep saying this. But the costumes are brilliant, and they look phenomenal in this too. Number 4, I have The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Just because the first 2, even 3 Hunger Games movies had a big focus on costumes. And this could do the exact same thing and probably get some attention there. Number 5, Killers of the Flower Moon. Martin Scorsese movies as of late have been getting nominated for that, even though I don't think they're quite deserved. The Irishman got it for basically Suits, so, I mean, if that can get in for that, then Killers of the Flower Moon will do it, because that has a lot more period era costumes that I think a lot of people are going to really like. Best Score, which last year kind of became a joke of a category when they gave dubstep Hans Zimmer an Oscar over the phenomenal Babylon score. But anyway, I digress. Best Score, I think, is going to be Dune Part 2. Hans Zimmer's score for this, real Hans Zimmer, was excellent. I mean, just really out of the box, really innovative, and we're probably going to get more of that here. I think it wins hands down. Number 2, Oppenheimer, just because the score in the trailer sounded really great. Sometimes they don't usually use the trailer music in the real movie, but if they do in this case, I think they've got a great score in their hands. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, I have getting into the score because it's just going to be playing that iconic indie music, and people are going to really love that and get wrapped up in the nostalgia of it all. And John Williams has been nominated for score many times for movies where it just sounds like they're just repeating his iconic score. Star Wars, the whole new trilogy, all got nominated for score because it played that iconic John Williams music. Number 4, I have Killers of the Flower Moon. I'm hearing that it does have a great score, so it could get in here. Number 5, I tentatively have Elemental. I originally had it at 2 or 3 before I saw the movie because it had a Thomas Newman score. The soundtrack and score in the trailers look great, but not too much of it carried over into the real movie. So I don't really think it has too much of a shot in score, but just because of the reputation of Thomas Newman, it could get in. But to be honest, the score left practically no impression on me. It was just fun Pixar music, and that was really it at the end of the day. The original song, which I'm not really going to go into that category today just because there's not really enough songs out there right now, or ones that I really know of. I don't think it's worthy of having that discussion. But right now, I actually think the original song for Elemental is my number one, because that song is phenomenal. It is probably the best part of the movie, to be honest. The credit song, it kind of tears at your heartstrings a little bit. I really, really like it, and I think it's worth listening to. Best makeup and hairstyling, it has to go to Maestro. You look at one image of Bradley Cooper, it is obvious to me that this is going to be the winner. And if the movie does just reasonably well, I think it gets in and wins this category. Dune Part 2, it's going to have excellent makeup. You've seen what Austin Butler looks like. You've seen the Baron before. It's going to look great, and it's going to get nominated. Barbie, I think it's just going to have great makeup. It's a Barbie movie. A lot of fun characters, so yeah, it could get in there. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, just because the past two, I believe, got nominated. Purely, I think, because of Drax, and we're going to see that again here. Number 5, The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. The Hunger Games has very expressive costumes, very expressive makeup, so I think those two will go hand in hand and potentially get 2 nominations. If this movie bombs, which is possible, it won't get nominated for anything, but I think it's going to do fairly well because a lot of people are Hunger Games fans. I consider myself to be a fan of that franchise, and I'll be definitely seeing it. But, you know, if it doesn't do well, I don't see it getting nominated for anything. Okay, last category that I'm going to be talking about is visual effects. I think Dune Part 2 takes it quite handedly, I think, because in Part 1, and from what I've seen in this trailer for Part 2, the visual effects look just incredibly stunning. Just phenomenal. This is what visual effects should look like. Not what we saw in that garbage Flash movie. This is it. This is the standard for which we should hold visual effects. And it's really going to look great in this iteration. And I think there's going to be a lot more of it too. Number 2, I have Oppenheimer, because even though a ton of it's practical, the Oscars love to award that shit. You know, they kind of consider practical effects to really be in this category, even though I don't think it's really written down as being that. But the fact that they're detonating these bombs, and they are using, you know, CGI and things to make those explosions enhanced, I think it's enough to be a strong contender. It almost feels 1917-esque, which actually won in this category, where it's kind of in the background and unnoticeable, which is kind of really the standard for how you should have visual effects. You don't want to really notice it. That's the sign of good visual effects. And Oppenheimer, I think, is going to have a lot of that. Number 3, The Creator. It's a big sci-fi movie. And from what I've seen in the trailer, the visual effects look pretty good. Could get nominated. Number 4, I think out of all of the Marvel movies to get a nomination in this category, it's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Visual effects, I think, looked pretty good, apart from maybe 1 or 2 scenes. Definitely way better than what we've gotten lately with Marvel. And even DC, superhero movies in general just look like trash in terms of visual effects right now. And Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 at least looks pretty solid. Number 5, I have Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. You know, they're using that de-aging visual effects, which can sometimes look a bit distracting, but in other angles, it does look pretty good on Harrison Ford. We need to wait and see how that is actually executed in the movie. But yeah, I think it's enough to maybe get in, and it's showy enough where people are going to notice it. Alright, thanks for checking in for this Oscars video. I'm not someone who's going to be doing these predictions monthly. I like to do them when I have a lot of new information that I can work with. This one, I barely had enough here after the hype from Cannes, some of the trailers I've seen, and seeing Spider-Verse and Elemental. You know, once I see some of these movies, like when I see Poor Things, Killers of the Flower Moon, Dune Part 2, Oppenheimer, you know, I'm going to have a lot more information to work with and give you some really accurate predictions, or what I think will be accurate predictions. Right now, I can only go off anticipation and buzz. But I will have another Oscars prediction sometime in the future. I always talk Oscars on this channel, especially with movies that I think are contenders. I always save a little section for how I think it's going to do. But I think it's going to be a really exciting race. It doesn't seem like as stacked of a lineup as we've seen, last year, but it still looks good enough. And there are going to be a ton of surprises. I know that. I know we're going to see some pretty interesting films that are going to pop up later in the year that are going to be added to this list, hands down. I can't wait to see those. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.